Next up, we have a very special fireside chat. I'm pleased to introduce Professor Charlie Fink, who writes the weekly Forbes column, This Week in XR, and co-hosts its companion podcast. Charlie will be joined by none other than Rony Abovitz, founder of MAKO Robotics, and of course, Magic Leap. Please welcome Charlie.
Good morning, everybody. It's great to be here at AWE and of course to have Rony in a box. Rony? Great to see you. So among the many accolades that Rony has and many jobs that he has, one is at Boston Consulting Group, where he is right now. We thank Boston Consulting Group for all their efforts to make the art happen. Art being the name of the box that he is standing in. And Rony is also the co-host of my podcast, as well as Ted Schilowitz, who is at home recovering from heart surgery. I know he's watching. We love you, Ted. So, Rony.
Hey, Ted.
Rony, so when we talk about XR, as we do every week, you love the metaphor of the space program. And you love to say that we are in, I've heard you say it 10 times, that we are in the Gemini stage of developing augmented reality. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so for those unfamiliar, Charlie, there was Mercury-Gemini-Apollo. We sort of broke up this mission to the moon into these three phases. And if you looked at Mercury alone, you would think we weren't going to the moon. It was like, get up into orbit the Earth a few times, far away from the moon, no spacewalk. So my take is we're really past that phase in XR, but we're firmly in what I call Gemini. Gemini was the first spacewalks. It was the beginning of trying to figure out how to orbit the moon, but we weren't there yet. And that middle period is really hard for people to grasp, right? Because everybody wants to go to the top of the mountain. They want that lunar landing. They want XR to be 1 billion users, but you can't get there. You can't get to that Apollo phase without going through the necessary middle phase, which I call the Gemini right now. And I think there's a lot of markers that tell us we're past Mercury, we're in Gemini, but we're not yet in Apollo. And that requires a lot of patience, sustained effort, a huge amount of energy from this community to get us to that next phase.
So, well, what does Apollo look like, right? How will we know when we're there?
So I mark Apollo in a couple ways, at least in my mind. One of them is the devices will be incredibly high finesse. Like all the compromises we're making today, I don't think we're going to have to make those as we hit the Apollo phase. You're going to have like all the field of view you want. The battery's going to last all day, maybe even 2 days. You're going to have incredible color. You're going to be at that like past 4K resolution, true retina resolution. You'll be able to use it indoor, outdoor. You'll get true blacks. You'll get AR and VR in the same device. It's going to be at a price point that like at least 1 billion people around the world can afford. The entire ecosystem will be explosive. It won't be a question, is this a field anymore? And that's the stuff we're struggling through right now in the Gemini phase.
So we often speculate about the amount of time that it would take to realize something like that. Do you think we're 5 years out, or really 10 years out is almost science fiction?
So my take, Charlie, we started, what to me marked Gemini and what to me would mark the beginning of Apollo. I think things like the HTC Vive Pro Elite, the Magic Leap 2, maybe something the fruit company ships or doesn't ship next week, we'll see what happens. To me, those are markers of like the next generation of devices that really are different in multiple ways, field of view capability, you can really taste it, but we're not fully there in Apollo. My guess is like near the end of this decade, we're gonna have like 5, 6, 7 years of Gemini, but maybe late 2020s, early 2030s, we're gonna cross that next phase, and it's just gonna be wonderful and amazing. But I do wanna stress the Gemini phase will also be amazing, right? If, like you and I grew up with computing, every new release was exciting. It wasn't like we just had to get to the latest iPhone, right? You sort of enjoy the climb, and I think the community misses out if you don't enjoy every step up the mountain, every piece of this program to get there.
I like to say that I was here at the beginning, and it's still the beginning. So it's sort of like every few years we reset the 10 years that it's going to take. Let me pivot to a question that we discussed before our talk, which is why didn't Magic Leap make it to Apollo? Was it too early? You told me when we first met that you had 100-year investors. So what happened between that conversation in 2017 and now?
Well, I'll give you my take on it, Charlie. First of all, no company is out of Gemini. In fact, we're all entering Gemini. So I think Magic Leap with the Magic Leap 2 is one of the markers of like what I call the Gemini phase. I think there's some other great work by some other great companies out there. And there's nothing that's blocking them from actually going the distance and making it to Apollo. No one's in Apollo yet. It's not just money, it's money, time, and we're having to fight through, I would say, incredibly complex engineering and physics. I think the best players in the space, the ones really pushing the edge, creating the IP, innovating, they all know it. They all see the mountaintop. They actually understand the pathway to get there. There's simply a slowness to human innovation. And there's a certain cycle time that we're all going to have to go through to get there. And my guess is 2023 today, we're in the kind of the early period of Gemini. Maybe 28, 29, we exit it. If everyone really works hard and sort of the investment and push and scaling doesn't stop, we'll get there.
It seems to me XR is following the development pattern of the personal computer, which took nearly 20 years. For consumers, the PC didn't have a killer app until it met online services, until it met the internet. So is that what's happening with XR, or are we just kind of feeling our way to that killer app that makes everybody buy a PC?
Yeah, I look at it this way. You and I talked about something I call the win circuit, W-I-N. How many things have to go green at the same time? Sorry, I jumped the question, but how many things have to go green at the same time in order for this thing to really explode, right? We're in the tens of millions of XR users. What does it take to go to hundreds of millions and billions? First of all, I think you have to get all these pieces of the technology that you put on your face really, really good, including this interaction between the human physiology, the brain, and the optics, and the sensing, the computer. You can't shortcut that. A lot of companies are shortcutting that. You can't do that. You have to do it right, or people will not just adopt at the scale we want. I think the next thing is people want everything. It's not a single app anymore. What people do, I think the mistake is it's a single app that does break this open. My iPhone does billions of things, right? There's hundreds of millions of things that people love. And I think what people want is like, those devices are so mature, everyone wants XR to be at that same place as your laptop, as your iPad, as your phone. And it's going to take a little bit longer to get there. I mean, we're just not of the same curve of maturity. It doesn't mean there's not thousands of great things to do, but people want all the things you do on your phone and your television and your movie theater and all these brand new things to all just be there in perfection right now, and that's just not how development works, even there are so many cool things happening right now in XR.
So, just to clarify, the win circuit is like a bunch of red lights, and then you talk about biology and technology and psychology and sociology and ecosystems, and each one of those has to flip green for us to start to achieve an Apollo kind of experience and scale.
Yeah, the way I would describe it, Charlie, is like, if certain things are red, like you just don't get any movement, right? But if you have enough green, you start to get some scale. You get millions of users, you get tens of millions of users. For example, one of them is weight. You know, this is like 60 grams. And this has a field of view of like 110, 115 degrees. And I see the world without nausea, without dizziness, without adverse effect. And I see the world clearly, and I'm not looking through a video display. I see the world directly. I want all of that and all of the other amazing magic XR promises in something like this, right? That's everything going green. Now, as you start to go where we are today, there's compromise. It's a little bigger. There's a wire. There's a battery pack. But all of these things begin to show you the experiences. Now, the difference is, like, what will it take to make this totally wireless? What will it take to get to that weight without sacrificing power, without sacrificing quality of optics? Those are the questions all the really good engineers are fighting behind the scenes. And every year you're starting to see amazing new breakthroughs. I think the progress in the field, if you go back to like when we started, 2011, 2012, it's just incredible, the progress.
So, again, pivoting to another topic, which I know everyone here, including myself, is curious about. On the podcast, you said AI is what XR has been waiting for. Can you elaborate on that? Tell us what you mean by that.
Yeah, a couple things. One, there's a lot of articles that, like, because of Gen AI, everyone's moving away from metaverse and XR, but I always thought of these things as tied together, right? To me, XR is the new way for people to interact with computing. And part of computing is going to be really high-speed internet. Another big part of computing is going to be amazing computational intelligence that you could summon in all these different ways, by waving your hand, by typing, by speaking, by gesturing, by picking up a wand or something. You'll have this total control over what feels like this magical world, and I think Gen AI has been an essential part for it. One of the things we tried to show early was we showed this like AI embodiment we called MAKO, and I think as you start to see like the embodiment of what AI can be, and then the power of what's happening with Gen AI today, put them together in like where you see devices in a few years, it's going to be absolutely incredible. So they're not separate things. They really are joined together, at least in my mind, and I think a bunch of people in this room.
So,
not the room I'm in, the room you guys are in.
So, the hot topics here at AWE are AI and the launch next week, or the expected launch next week, of Apple's Reality Pro XR headset.
Yeah.
I mean, I think obviously it's a watershed event. I think it's nothing but good for the people in this room. It sounds like, and again, I have no special information about it. I, read the same things you guys read, Mark Gurman and so forth, but otherwise I don't have any special insight. But supposedly it's going to be it's going to be a pass-through device rather than a see-through device. Now, I know that you are not a fan of things passing through essentially a TV screen or a computer screen. But tell me why you don't think that's a good way for us to start, given the challenges of seeing through glass.
Right, so look, I definitely have a real bias in this, but my take is, if we know what the end game looks like, which is to see the real world directly and to inject the digital information with it in a really artfully blended way, my take was always to go right for that. What I think happens at video pass-through is it gives you, I think of it as a cheat code. You can sort of begin to create the experiences we want at the end, but we all know that's not the end game, it's the middle game. Now, there are some advantages of doing it. You're going to get like really cool color, you're going to get better field of view, it is somewhat easier to do, but you're going to have to throw all that away at some point and then figure out, how do I actually get 1 billion people to see the world directly without living through video? Now, I could be wrong. If I'm wrong and 1 billion people actually want to spend their days, 8 hours, 10 hours a day looking through video and not seeing the real world naturally, to me that's a really kind of scary thing. I'd rather people feel the real world, and computing just sort of organically flows in and out and doesn't impede your view of the world. I just think there's a existential philosophical debate on that.
So here's a question I've been asking for 10 years. How the hell did Apple keep a secret like this? That's the thing that always made me feel like, well, how far along can they be? Because there's no leaks. It's like leak-proof. So, and of course, I strongly suspect, although I don't know for a fact, that our podcast co-host has seen the device, and he is as silent as he would be if his mother was a hostage in Cupertino. Now, you knew something about keeping secrets, too. So how do you think Apple pulled this off to get 5,000 people to not say anything for half a dozen years? That's crazy.
Look, first of all, Charlie, I think the way things like this happen, first of all, you have a team really dedicated, whether it was what we were trying to do or what Apple may be doing, just dedicated and believing in this, and they don't really want to give up the script to the film. They don't want to give up the trade secrets of the Coke recipe. I mean, it's natural for a team to form this alliance and want to protect what they're building and want to have that revelation. I think it's no different from like how a Star Wars movie comes out or something, and the script is held very tightly. But with the amount of scrutiny, you're right. But it hasn't been that much of a secret because there's so many pieces, little tiny pieces coming out. You can actually composite, and we have what we all think it is. Now, we could be completely wrong, and in fact, they may not ship anything next week, but it's interesting to see like all the little weird rumors and tidbits from the other side, because I know what it was like to be on the inside and have all these people comment on things. 80–90% of it was wrong.
Yeah, I'm watching live on Monday. I'm not going to be there like some of my colleagues, but I think it's going to be great. I really am excited about it, as excited as I am about attending AWE every year. So, downsides, right? We were talking about trust, right? There's so much data that can be collected about us from a wearable device. It'll make the intrusive spying of social networks seem trivial. So how do we do this where we imbue not only the headset, but the AI that's powering it with enough trust that I know every day that it's as private as wearing a pair of glasses?
So Charlie, here's how I thought about it, and I hope this does leak into the AW community. I thought of the moment where billions of people are wearing these kind of devices that sense the world, they sense you, they hear you, they map your surroundings. That's like a very close relative. It's like a parent or a sibling level of trust.
Yeah.
And right now, I don't think any tech company is anywhere near that standard, right? So I think if you're on the developer side, if you're on the user side, you have to demand that standard, which is like absolute feeling of like, this is a close relative, this is my parent. I'm not going to rifle through your drawers. I'm not going to look at your bills. I'm not going to take what I learned inside your house. Like if you invited me to your house, Charlie, and you found me rifling through your files, you'd kick me out. You never let me back in again. So I think these devices bring an incredible burden of trust and privacy and new levels of data security and data protection. The problem with that is some of the companies funding it to the tunes of billions per quarter want to monetize all the data that comes from this broken trust, or I'd say the obfuscation of trust. Sign these 18,000-page EULAs that you don't know what they mean. There's a great episode on South Park if you want to understand that. But basically, the models are broken. So you kind of need companies to come forward with like really clear, straightforward models. Your data is yours, period. We're not taking it, end of story. That's my view, and I think you have to figure out how to build revenue and a foundation like that, because if you want people to have belief in you as a company and really trust that you're not going to abuse them, you have to not abuse them on every single level. You have to really bring that forward. Hopefully this community can make that happen.
So two interesting things that have happened recently with the AI boom. One is, of course, the metaverse. It has sucked a lot of the air out of the room, even from XR at what I consider is kind of an exciting moment with both Google, Apple, and then Google moving toward XR devices. But at the same time, it seems like, the hot topic at AWE last year was the metaverse. And it just seems like the metaverse has been completely deflated as an idea, as a North Star. Is it just that hype has gone away and the work toward the metaverse continues, or did we get something really wrong there?
Okay, I'll give you my perspective, right? First of all, the metaverse, the name belongs to my friend Neil, who wrote Snow Crash, worked with him for many years. It got co-opted and it got attached to all these weird things, right? Here's what I think of the metaverse. It is the internet, which no one can say is going away, and all of Gen AI is riding through the internet. And the internet has these amazing new endpoints, IoT, robotics, computer vision, AR, VR. I think of that internet as growing into something that is the spatial internet. When you think of it that way, none of it went away. All that happened with Gen AI is it made that collective that we call the internet much smarter, much better, and now enabled to hook up to all these cool endpoints. So I think all the noise about the word metaverse is because certain companies may have co-opted that name associated with a very particular view, and that turned people off. Meanwhile, they're missing a much bigger picture. The spatial internet's not going anywhere. Gen AI is running on this spatial internet. It's super important. So if we think of it that way, it's a word and a brand name that got damaged, not the actual underpinning system.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I think in a way, it's going to be good for the metaverse, for the hype to die away, and then for some hard work to begin. I know Lemon and One and other companies are working on that, and maybe this gives them some running room free from hype and unrealistic expectations. So it looks like this is just about all the time we have. So thank you to Art for providing this fantastic method of us getting together as opposed to our usual Zoom. Should we try and do a high five before you say goodbye?
There we go.
Did that look good to the camera? All right,
Wait,
Rony.
Charlie, should I come out of the box now?
Back at you. See you Friday.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
See you guys. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, AWE.